Good morning students, welcome to the lecture 4 of engineering mechanics. Today we are going to study plane motion. So we have already seen 3 equations of motions. So today we are going to apply those equations of motions in numericals, right? So let us directly start with the problems. So we have already seen these 3 equations: v is equal to u plus at, s is equal to ut plus half at square, and v square is equal to u square plus 2as. Today we are going to apply these 3 equations in some problems, right? So let us move to next slide. So first question is of question of IAS 1999. So match these two lists. So it is just for the revision purpose, this question. What is average acceleration? So average acceleration is delta v by t. So delta v is nothing but v2 minus v1, right, divided by delta t, t2 minus t1. So it is a general case. So we are not talking about the fluctuation of velocity. It is just first point and end point, right? Second one is instantaneous acceleration. So instantaneous acceleration means it is not average, right? So what will be instantaneous? When you differentiate it, when you make v2 minus v1 very small and t2 minus t1 very small. So in that case what will happen? When you make t2 minus t1 very small, then this will come, limit delta t tends to 0 and dv by dt. So that will be our instantaneous acceleration. Instantaneous means time is very less, that's why delta t tends to 0, right? Third one is uniform motion. So what happens in uniform motion? Our velocity will remain constant, right? So if velocity is constant, then acceleration will be 0, right? So for this we have this one as answer, right? Last one is uniformly accelerated motion, right? So uniformly acceleration, what is the meaning of this? Acceleration is constant, right? So it will match to first one, right? So in that case what will be the answer? A3, right, and B 4, okay, C 2, right, this one. So D will be the answer, right? So normally this type of questions are coming worth 1 marks only, right? It won't come more than 1 marks, okay? So let us move to next question. So we have this question, it is also last year gate question, right? So let us read the question first. A straight rod length LT hinged at one end freely extensible, right? This term is something new. At the other end rotates through an angle of theta t, okay? Theta t is nothing but angle about the hinge. At the time t, LT is equal to 1 meter, right? And L dot t, that what is L dot t? dl by dt. So what is the meaning of dl by dt? Velocity is equal to 1 meter per second, okay? Theta t is equal to pi by 4 radian, and theta dot is equal to 1 radian per second. What is the meaning of theta dot? Omega, angular velocity. The magnitude of the velocity at the other end of the rod is, that's what we have to find, the magnitude of the velocity at the other end of the rod. So we have to see this expression here. What is the meaning of freely extensible? So first let us make the diagram. So this is the rod we have, this is the hinge or pin joint, because we consider both of them same. So what they are saying, at this end it is freely extensible. So what does it mean to have freely extensible? So we can assume that there is a slider here. We can just assume that there is a slider and there is no friction between slider and this rod, right? So in that case what will happen? This slider can freely move, okay? This slider can freely move from one point to another point, right? So what is given? LT is equal to 1, okay? At time t, suppose right now time is t, okay, and LT is equal to 1, length of the rod is equal to 1, right? So you just assume this is nothing, right? Okay, so length of the rod is 1 meter at time t is equal to t. Okay, and at that same time L dot t, what is the meaning of L dot t? dlt by dt. So it is actually VR, radial velocity of slider, that is equal to 1, right? Theta t is equal to pi by 4. I don't think it will have any meaning. Theta dot t is equal to 1 radian per second. So theta dot t is nothing but omega 1 radian per second. The magnitude of velocity at the end of the rod is. So how do we find out velocity of this slider? If we find out the velocity of this slider, we can find out the velocity of this free extensible end, right? So what will happen? There are two components of velocity. First one in this direction, that is because of angular motion of slider. Okay, angular motion of rod, right? So this is, suppose it is Vt and the value will be equal to omega into r. Okay, r is length from here to here, that is 1, right? Omega is also 1, right? So it will become 1. Other one is L dot t. So L dot t means the slider is moving in outward direction with the velocity of L dot t, right? That is equal to 1. So this we can say VR is equal to 1. So now how do we find out the final velocity of the slider? So what will happen? You just make a parallelogram. So this parallelogram will be nothing but a rectangle, right? And the final velocity will be this one. Okay, final velocity V. That will be equal to Vt square plus VR square under root. So both are 1 1, so answer will be root 2, right? So this will be the answer, right? So in each GATE exam you will find at least one of this type of question, right? They will be giving you some equation and you have to solve, you have to differentiate that equation and you have to find out velocity and acceleration, right? So that is the answer, under root 2. Now let us move to next slide. Okay, a particle is moving according to the displacement given below. Find the distance covered by it in 2 seconds starting from rest. So directly formula is given 2t cube plus 3t square plus 7, right? So what they are asking, covered by it in 2 seconds, right? So first we have to find out at t is equal to 0, right? So you have to just put t is equal to 0 plus 7. So that will become S1 or you can say S0, right? So at t is equal to 2 second, S1 is equal to 2 into 2 cube plus 3 into 2 square plus 7, right? So what they are asking, displacement given below the distance covered by it in 2 seconds starting from rest. So the distance will be S1 minus S0. So what we will get? So we will directly get 2 into 2 cube plus 3 into 2 square. Okay, so 16 plus 12, that will be 28, right? So 28 will be the answer, right? Okay, so these type of questions definitely you are going to get one question in GATE. So that's why we need to do more practice. So let us move to next question now. So a car is moving with uniform acceleration, covers 450 meter in a 5-second interval and covers 700 meter in next 5-second interval. The acceleration of the car is. So what is happening? Suppose at t is equal to 0, car is here. At t is equal to 5, car is here, covering around 450 meter distance, right? And then at t is equal to 10, next 5 seconds, right? Suppose car is here, right? And it is covering now around 700 meter, right? Okay, and this car is moving with uniform acceleration. You can see here uniform acceleration. So a is constant. Okay, the meaning of uniform acceleration is a is constant, right? So how we are going to solve it? So first we will solve first part here and second part. Okay, then we'll get two equations, and after getting those two equations, then only we can find out the acceleration, right? So let us start. So first one will be, we will directly use second equation of Newton. Okay, what is second equation of Newton? S is equal to ut plus half at square. So that we are going to use for first, right? So S1, suppose S1 is nothing but 450. U is nothing but initial velocity of the, or we can say it u0, right? u0t plus a by 2 t square, right? So S1 is 450, t is 5 seconds. Okay, because from here to here it took around 5 seconds. So I will just replace t with 5. Five square, right? And S1 with 450, right? Now we will solve it for this, right? 700, okay, is equal to, now u0 is the initial velocity here. Now for this, initial velocity will be at this point, right? So we can say it u1, right? T will be 5 again, because from here to here it is taking 5 minutes, 5 seconds. A by 2, 5 square. So we got two equations and we have three unknowns. 1, this is unknown, 2, this is unknown, and 3, this is unknown. So we have two equations, 3 unknowns. So definitely we are going to need one more equation. And how we are going to find out one more equation? From here, from this point. So what will happen? At this point, the final velocity of the car for first will be equal to initial velocity of car for the second, right? So the final velocity of the car at this point will be equal to initial velocity of the car for this section, right? So we have divided the car into two sections, right? So what will happen? For this case, we will write first equation of motion. What is first equation of motion? V is equal to u0 plus at, right? So this V is the final velocity of the car for this expression. This will be equal to the initial velocity of car for this expression, right? So this V will be equal to u1 here, right? Okay, so now what we will do, we will replace u1 with this equation, right? So let us replace u1 with u0 plus at. 700 is equal to u1 is u0 plus a into 5, t is 5, right? 5 plus a by 2, 5 square. Okay, so now we are having two equations. One is this one and other one is this one. Okay, and the two equations we have and two unknowns, 1, 2. Two unknowns, 1 and 2. Only a and u0 are the unknowns. So now what we have to find out? We have to find out the acceleration of the car. So what we need to do? We need to replace u0. We need to remove u0 from these two equations and we need to find out a, right? So the easiest way is to just consider that this is equation 1 and this is equation 2, right? And just subtract equation 1 from equation 2. So what I am going to do? Equation 2 minus equation 1. I am just subtracting 1 from the 2. Okay. So when you will, so all these little bit of calculation you have to do in your mind itself. So when you will subtract 1 from the 2, what will happen? This term will cut down, right? A5 square by 2, right? And this term u0 into 5 will be also cut down, because this 5 will come inside and this also cut down. And from 7, when you minus 450 from 700, what you will get? Let us see, 10 minus 5, 250, right? So this is 700 minus 450 is equal to a into 5 square, right? Because all the other terms are cut down. Okay, they are all cancelled out, right? So what will be the a? 250 by 25, that will be 10. Okay, so the answer will be 10 meter per second square. Here it is. So that will be our answer. So this was very easy question, but if you have continuous practice of solving all the three equations of motion, then only you can use this equation very easily, right? So let us move to next question. So the next question is, I will just read it out. A time variation of the position of a particle in rectilinear motion is given by this equation, right? If v is the velocity, a is the acceleration of the particle in consistent units, the motion started with. So simply they are nothing asking, they are asking the value of the motion at starting point. At t is equal to 0, they are asking v and acceleration. How I find out they are asking v and acceleration? From the options. So in options they are asking v and a, right? So we have to find out v and a at t is equal to 0, velocity and acceleration at t is equal to 0, right? So x is equal to 2t cube plus t square plus 2t, then x dot, that is dx by dt, that is velocity, will be equal to 2 into 3 into t square. Okay, once you differentiate it, plus 2t plus 2. Now you have to replace t with 0. When you put t is equal to 0, you will get v naught is equal to 2, right? So velocity we already got. Okay, so in c and d v is equal to 2. Now we have to find out acceleration. Again we have to differentiate this equation, right? So acceleration is equal to x double dot. Okay, so 2 into 3 into 2 into t plus 2, right? When you put t is equal to 0, you get a is equal to 2. So both the velocity and acceleration both are 2. Okay, so that will be our answer. Okay, so these are all very easy questions, but we should have practice and we should come to the correct answer, right? We should not do mistake here in all these easy problem. And definitely you are going to get at least one question from here. 1 mark question definitely you are going to get. Now it is very famous question. Always, no, almost always this question is coming in GATE, right, nowadays. So let me read the question. A circular disc of a radius r rolls without slipping at a velocity v. Okay, the magnitude of the velocity at point P is. So first thing we need to know what is the rolling without slipping. So there is a condition when we have rolling without slipping, the v is velocity of the center point of the roller should be equal to omega into r. Omega is the angular acceleration of the roller into the radius of the roller. So that condition we need to remember always when we have rolling without slipping. This v should be equal to omega r, right? So this v is nothing but velocity of the center point, right? Omega is nothing but angular velocity of the roller, and r is the radius of the roller, right? So this always, this equation always comply with this equation, right? Okay, so now we have to find out the velocity of point P. Okay, so there is a simple trick in that we are going to use one concept of kinematics of machine, that is instantaneous center, right? So what is the meaning of instantaneous center? Instantaneous center is that about which we can assume that a body is rotating at some point of time, right? So at this point of time, this whole body is rotating about this point. How can I say that? So I will take a simple example. Suppose a particle Okay, it is a center point and this particle is rotating about this center point, right? So this center point is always having v is equal to 0 and this is having always v is equal to omega r, right? So same thing we have to find out whichever point is having 0 velocity, okay, that is the center point. So here in this whole body, when it is rotating, only this point is having 0 velocity during rolling without slipping, right? So if it is not slipping, then this point will always have 0 velocity and it will act like a instantaneous center, right? This point will always act like a instantaneous center, and if this point is instantaneous center, all the particle in this roller will have velocity that will be perpendicular, okay, that will be like this. So suppose this is a point P, you just join these 2 points and then you make a perpendicular here, and this will be the velocity of point P and this will be the direction, okay. So in this case what we need to know, this formula we need to apply, okay, about this point, right? So velocity of the point P will be omega, that is the angular velocity of the roller, into, suppose this point is OP, right? So formula is same, only r got changed, okay. Now this r is not a radius of the roller, it is actually the distance of the point from this touching point, right, from the instantaneous center. So now we can use this formula, okay. Suppose they are asking velocity of this point here, then what you are going to do, first you connect this point with the instantaneous center, then you make a perpendicular here, okay, then you find out, suppose this is q into O, okay, this distance you will find out, then you multiply this distance with the omega, then you can find out the velocity. So that will be the proper way in which we will solve this problem, right? So now what is the next challenge? To find this distance from O to P, and how we can find out? We can use simple 9th class algebra, right? The property of the chord. So I will make the diagram separately here. Suppose this thing we have is a chord of a circle. So what is the property? If you put a perpendicular to this chord, this perpendicular will bisect this OP, okay. So perpendicular from the center will always bisect the chord. So both this one and this one will be equal, right? So this method we need to apply to find out OP, okay. So now let us find out OP directly. You just connect it like this, okay, and we need to just find this angle. And what is the angle? How to find out this angle? This is 30, right? This is 30 and this angle from here to here is 90, okay. So whole angle from here to here, total angle between CP and CO is 120, right? 90 plus 30, right? Okay, so this total angle will be 120 and we are putting an angle bisector here, then this angle will be 60, right? Because both these lengths are same, this one is radius, so the angle in front of them will be same, it will be 60, right? So 60 plus 60 will become 120. This is r, the radius, then we can easily find out the distance between them from here to here, r sin 30, sin 60, sorry, right? So this will be r sin 60, the whole length OP will be 2r sin 60. So the OP will be 2r sin 60, right? Okay, so once we get OP and we have already omega, we can find out VP. Okay, now we have to just put the values. So we will just put sin 60 is equal to root 3 by 2, 2 into root 3 by 2 into omega into r. From here you can find out omega into r is equal to v. Velocity of point center, right? 2 will cut down. So Vp will be finally equal to root 3 v, right? This v is velocity of center. So in the term of v we can find out velocity of p. So answer will be root 3 v. Okay. So that's how we are going to solve this type of problem, right? You have to consider this point as instantaneous center. That is the most important thing, right? Okay, let us move to next question. Okay. So now we will just study what is work and energy. Okay. So already I told you what is the meaning of work. Work is a dot product between force and displacement. Okay. When we integrate f dot ds, right, from s1 to s2, then we can find out work, right? So let me make the simple formula. Work done is equal to integration of f dot ds, right? So suppose we are having this mass here, okay, and this mass is moving in positive x direction, right? And suppose force is acting in this direction, right? So what will happen? We know the dot product. What is the property of dot product? F dot d is equal to fd cos theta, right? So this theta is nothing but alpha and angle between f and d, right? So work done will be equal to f dot d, and that will come fd cos alpha, right? Okay, so that will be the basic definition. When you integrate it, you can find out full work, right? So now we need to find out, suppose alpha is equal to 0. At that time what will happen? Alpha will become 0 here and we will get f into d, maximum work done, right? Suppose alpha is equal to 90, that time what will happen? Alpha here will become 90, then you will get work done is equal to 0, right? Because sine cos 90 is equal to 0. Suppose alpha is equal to 180, in that case what you are going to find? Cos 180 is equal to minus 1, fd into minus 1, right? So it will be negative work. So what is the meaning of negative work? So the body itself is not doing work, the work is being done upon the body from outside. So that is, then we will get negative work done, right? Okay, then let us move. It is the basics. So we are going to use work energy principle everywhere. So let us read it out. Work done due to a force acting over a body during a displacement is equal to change in kinetic energy of the system, right? Suppose we are having this body under this force F, okay, and there is no friction, suppose, okay. So what will happen? Suppose here is velocity v1 and here is velocity v2. So the work done by the force F will be equal to change in kinetic energy. So at this point of time, if mass is m, what will happen? Change in kinetic energy, m by 2, v2 square is kinetic energy at this point, minus m by 2, v1 square, kinetic energy at this point, right? This will be our work done, okay. Work done is equal to m by 2 v2 square minus m by 2 v1 square. That is what? Work energy principle, right? Same principle may apply for PE, potential energy, only in the case of conservative force only, right? So what is the meaning of conservative force? So in conservative force what happens? Work done because of that conservative force always depends upon the points, okay. It won't depend upon the path taken by the body itself, right? So what are the example of conservative force? First one is gravity force, right? So we all know the potential energy because of gravity is mgh. It only depends upon the height, okay. Suppose it is the ground and this is the body. If you move this body from h1 height to h2 height, from any path, the work done will remain always same, right? Because work done is a point function, right? Because of gravity, okay, work done because of gravity will be always same. I am not talking about what we call air drag or anything else, friction. Only work done because of the gravity, conservative force will always be equal to mg h2 minus h1, right? So that was what is the meaning of this line. Okay, so it may be work done may be equal to P1 minus P2 only in the case where we have conservative force. Okay, so a conservative force exists when the work done by that force on an object is independent of the object's path. Okay, so when it will be independent of the object path, when you are having force that is conservative, like a gravity force. So instead, the work done by a conservative force depends only on the end points of the motion of a body. An example of a conservative force is gravity, right? So that's what I explained. Now, energy conservation, it is actually a first law of thermodynamics. Energy will always remain conserved. But in mechanics, we will not have that heat energy. We will have only kinetic energy and potential energy. So suppose this is a mass, okay, and it is moving, and this is a ground, okay. This mass is moving with velocity v here, okay, v1 from this point to this point, right? Okay, and here it is having velocity v2, right? So what will be the kinetic energy? One will be half m v1 square. What will be potential energy? Suppose distance is h1, then m1g h1. It should be equal to here it is v2, and suppose distance is h2, right? ke2, what is ke2? m1 by 2 v2 square plus m1g h2. So this will always remain conserved. If we do not have any friction force or something, we don't have any air, we have only ground and masses, right? These two mass, this one mass, right? Then only this equation will follow, right? That is called energy conservation. Okay, so let us move to next topic now. We will solve some numericals now on work energy principle. So before doing some numericals, let us study energy of a rolling body. So this is a roller which is having rolling without slipping. Okay, then let us just find out the expression of the energy that it possesses, right? So kinetic energy, what it is having is, first one is because of the motion of its center of mass, right? So its center of mass is simply just moving away with velocity v. So because of that, it will have half m center of mass square, right? What is half mv square? Kinetic energy of the body when we will consider this body concentrated upon this center of mass. Now plus half I omega square. So what is I? Mass moment of inertia of this roller about this axis. So it is the axis that is coming out of the board. So about this axis, suppose mass moment of inertia of this body is ICM, and it is this body is rotating with omega angular acceleration, then it will have 1 by 2 omega cm into omega square, right? So that will be its inertial kinetic energy. Okay, so it will have total kinetic energy as addition of both of these, right? Okay, so that's how we are going to find out kinetic energy of a rolling object. Okay, so now let us see next topic. So this thing you have to always remember, it is very important. Half I omega square. This half I omega square you are using in flywheel. In dynamics of machines, you are using this half I omega square in flywheel, right? So you must be knowing this by now at least. Now suppose we are having this roller here and we have this spring, okay, and this spring has stiffness as K. Okay, so we all know stiffness of spring is K, right? K or S that we have already studied in kinematics of machine, right? So that you must have studied in your semester, right? This is basic thing. And what will be the energy stored in the spring is if suppose this spring is getting elongated by x distance, then the energy stored in the spring will be half kx square, right? Energy stored in the spring, right? So this half kx square is potential energy of the spring, right? So spring is having potential energy as half kx square. X is elongation of the spring and k is stiffness of the spring. Now in that case we have to find out total energy of the system. Okay, suppose this system is moved by x distance, right? In that case what will happen, if we have rolling without slipping for this roller, then the total energy will be, first one is energy stored in the spring plus obviously same thing half mv square that we found out in previous thing. V is the velocity of center of mass, plus if it is rolling with omega acceleration, omega angular velocity, then I by 2 omega square. So that will be the total energy of the system. So out of this total energy, this will be PE, potential energy, this whole thing will be kinetic energy, right? Okay, then let us do some numericals now. Okay, so what is the work done if a bucket of water weighing 10 Newton is pulled up from a well that is 20 meter deep by a rope weighing 1 Newton per meter? Okay, so we need to find out the work done by a person who is pulling a bucket that is full of water, right, from the well. Okay, suppose we have this well here. Okay, a person is here. Suppose we have to just know we are having some sort of you can say girder or crane type of thing. Okay, and we are having motor here and we have rope, and from this rope we have attached this bucket, right? From here to here distance is 20 meter. Okay, and then the weight of the bucket that is full of water is 10 Newton. 10 Newton. So here one thing is peculiar here, that is weight of the rope, that is 1 Newton per meter. So this rope itself has some weight. So if I will make this diagram again, this is a rope. Okay, and it is having some weight. So this rope got some weight. Okay, it is a pulley, and with the help of pulley you are pulling it, right? So this rope is having some weight, and that weight is 1 Newton per meter. Suppose from here to here it is 1 meter, then total weight is 1 meter. Okay, 1 Newton, right? Then total weight from here to here, from top to bottom, is 20 Newton, right? So now how do we find out the work done? So thing is that what we are doing, we are pulling this bucket from down to top, right? And to find out the work done, we can simply use potential energy, right? So what is the potential energy? mgh. So because only gravity is here, why I am saying only gravity is here? Because we have weight, and weight is in Newton, right? So first let us find out the work done to pull this bucket from bottom to top. So work done only for the bucket from bottom to top will be mgh. Mg is weight, that is equal to 10, right, into height is 20. So total is 200 joule, right? Now work done on the rope. So now what we will consider, this whole rope is concentrated at its center of gravity. Okay, at the middle point you can say simply, right? And this middle point will be from here to here, it is 10 meter, right? So don't assume there is any rope, you just assume the whole mass of rope is concentrated over this point. Okay, and now you have to get, we are going to pull this point up to 10 meter, right? So now again we will apply MGH. So what will be height? 10 meter. So what will be G? And we don't care about G, it is full weight, right? So total weight will be 1 Newton per meter. 1 Newton per meter into, so we have to multiply meter. What is the length? Into 20, right? Into 10. Okay, so we will find out 200 here. So 200 and 200 will become, total 200, this 200 will become 400. So that should be the answer, right? Okay, so 400 joule will be the answer. So here you can use center of mass, right? That will be here. Okay, now let us move to next numerical. A circular disc rolls down without slip on an inclined plane. The ratio of its rotational kinetic energy to the total energy is. So just now we have found out what is rotational kinetic energy, right? But first we have to make the diagram. A circular disc rolls down without slip on an inclined plane. So we are having this inclined plane, it is the disc, it is rolling down. So what is the rotational kinetic energy? So rotational kinetic energy will be I omega square by 2. I will be its mass moment of inertia about this point, its center, right? And then what will be total? Rotational, right? RKE we can say. Then total energy will be this one, I omega square by 2 plus mv square by 2, that is the velocity of this center v. Okay, and what they are asking, they are just asking RK divided by T, like this. Okay, so what we need to do, we need to find I. So what is the value of I? That you have to always remember. About this point, the value of mass moment of inertia of the disc is mr square by 2, right? So I will be equal to mr square by 2 I omega square RKE into omega is equal to V by R, V square by R square. So that's how you can do. R square is gone with R square by 2, yeah. Okay, so this will become mv square by 2. Something is wrong. Okay, so 1 by 2 I missed, right? Here already 1 by 2 is there. Okay, so into 2 it will become mv square by 4. So RKE will become mv square by 4, right? Okay, and total energy will become I omega square 2 is same, mv square by 4, right? So we have to just divide this. This is equation 1, this is equation 2. 1 divided by 2 will come 1 by 3. So the answer will be C, 1 by 3. Okay, so that's easy question it is, right? Let us move to next question now. Okay, so next is our topic, impulse and momentum. Now let us start another topic, impulse and momentum. So first we need to understand what is momentum. So momentum is nothing but if some a body is moving with v velocity and having mass m, then the multiplication of m and v is called momentum. Okay, so momentum of a body is equal to mass into velocity of that body, right? So a momentum of a body is defined as the product of its mass and its velocity, i.e. momentum is equal to m into u, right? So the principle of conservation of momentum for a closed system, one on which no external force acts, may be stated as the total linear momentum of system is constant. So as we know the first law of Newton, what says that a body, if it is in rest, it will remain in rest. If it is moving, if it will keep on moving without having any external effect, right? So what is the meaning of external effect? External force, friction or something, right? So it is the same principle of conservation of momentum. So suppose a body is here having mass m and velocity v, okay, and suppose it is continuously moving, then if it will reach at this point also it will have same m into v momentum. Okay, so because we are not applying any external force between, right, here from here to here we are not applying any external force, so its momentum will remain always constant, right? So that is the meaning of principle of conservation of momentum. It will be conserved, it should be conserved, right? So same thing will apply for a rotating body also. Suppose a particle is rotating with omega angular acceleration and this particle having mass m, okay, so what will happen? The angular momentum of this particle will remain constant. And how to define angular momentum? That will be I into omega. I is mass moment of inertia. In this case this mass is a pointed mass, so I will be equal to, suppose it is r, m r square into omega. So this will remain constant, that will be p dash, okay. So that is the meaning of conservation of momentum, okay. So one thing we need to notice, we should not have any external force in between, right? Then only this principle of conservation of momentum will work. So Newton's second law of motion, that we already know that the rate of change of momentum is directly proportional to the applied force, okay. So in first slide what we studied, Newton's second law, and that says that force is equal to ma, okay. So force is equal to ma, but this equation came from this law. And how it came? What they say, the rate of change of momentum d by dt of momentum mv is a momentum, is directly proportional to the applied force, producing the change and takes place in the direction of this force, right? So direction of the force and velocity will remain same, or velocity means mv is equal to momentum, right? So f is equal to d by dt of mv, right? Or you can simply say, because mass is normally constant, m into dv by dt, that will be equal to m into a, mass into acceleration, that is same here, right? So from here only this f is equal to ma came, right? Now impulse and impulsive force. So what is the meaning of impulse? So impulse, when we apply a very high force for a shorter period of time, for a very minute period of time we apply very high force, it is called impulsive force, right? So suppose this f is impulsive force. Forces that act for a very short periods of time are called impulsive force. The product of the impulsive force and the time during which it acts, delta t, and this delta t is very small, okay, which acts is called impulse. So this is called impulse, right? F delta t, right? So this will be the formula of impulse, right? So let us go back to d by dt of mv, right? So dmv is equal to f dt. So when we integrate it, we will find mv2 minus mv1 is equal to F dt, right. So this will be our change of momentum is equal to force into this time, right. Okay, so that with the help of this equation we are going to solve many problems. Okay, there are many problems like a rocket is moving up and rocket has a variable mass, right. So that also we can solve with the help of this formula, right. mv or m2v2 minus m1v1 is equal to f dt, right. Okay. Let us move to next. Now there are some numericals that we are going to solve on impulse, right. The average force exerted on the workpiece of a press tool operation is 150 kilonewton and the tool is in contact with the workpiece for 50 milliseconds. Determine the change in momentum. So as in previous case I found m2v2 minus m1v1. Change in momentum is equal to f dt, right. So here we don't have to do integration because already values are given directly, right. So the force is 150 kilonewton into time change is 50 millisecond. So kilonewton will go with millisecond, 10 to the power minus 3 and 10 to the power 3. 10 to the power 3 for 150, 10 to the power minus 3 for this. Cut down. So 150 into 50 will be our change in momentum, right. So if you multiply this you will find out change in momentum. So that's how we are going to apply this, okay, in industrial purpose, because this is numerical of an industry, right. We are having a press that is compressing, hitting a workpiece, right, for a very short period of time. So from this numerical you may find that impulse is very important in calculation of the machines, right. When machines are working in that period of time it is very important. Let us move to next question. A mass of 8 kg is dropped vertically onto a fixed horizontal plane and has an impact velocity of 10 meter per second. The mass rebounds with a velocity of 6 meter per second. If the mass plane contact time is 40 millisecond, calculate the impulse, right. Okay, so let us find out the impulse for this numerical. A mass, suppose we are having this mass here. So initially it is coming with, what is the velocity? It is having 8 kilogram, impact velocity of 10 meter per second, right. So right now it is coming, after impact it will go up, right. The mass rebounds with a velocity of 6 meter per second. 6 meter per second, it is rebounding. So mass plane contact time in between that, when it was at the contact point, it stayed there for 40 millisecond, right. So that is the delta t. Okay, so now we have to apply the previous equation again and we will find out the impulse, right. So impulse is okay, so that is equal to obviously f dt, but we don't have force here, so we will apply this itself, this equation, right. Mass is constant. So first one is velocity in downward direction. Suppose the velocity in downward direction is negative, because normally we assume velocity in downward direction as negative, minus, okay, sorry, this is v2, right. So it is this one velocity after the collision, right. It is 6 minus 10, right, and 6 or 10 is become 16 to 8. So that will be your impulse, right. Okay, that is the answer of A. Now the second question is the average value of the impulse force on the plane. So force we can find out from here, from this equation. So it is equal to f dt is equal to 16 into 8.
So F is equal to 16 into 8 divided by time. So you have to just solve it and find the answer. So that will be the answer, right? So we have two answers here.
So that's how with the help of single formula you can find out a lot of things, right? Okay, then let us move to next question. Okay, that's what it is.
8 into 16 will come 128. Then after 128 divided by 14 to 10 to the power minus 3 will come 3.2 kilometer. Right.
A gun of mass 1.5 ton fires a shell of mass 15 kilogram horizontally with a velocity of 500 meter per second. Okay, so that shell.
So we are having a gun. Suppose this is a big gun we have. Okay. Okay.
So this gun weighs around 1.5 ton.
Okay. And there is a shell inside. It is a shell,
and this shell is having weight of 15 kilogram, right? So what will happen, how this gun works normally, what they will do,
normally either they will have one spring here in between shell. Suppose this is a shell, they will have a spring here,
or otherwise they will put some what we call gunpowder, right? They will burn the gunpowder, because of that gunpowder will burn and this shell will go out.
Okay. Or they may have a spring here, right? They will compress the spring, and when the spring will be expanded, this shell will come out and it will go like a bullet,
right?
So what they are asking, determine the initial velocity of recoil.
Okay, so what will happen when they will project this shell, after that what will happen, this whole body will recoil, right? So I will tell you with simple example.
Suppose it is a gun we have, okay, and this is a shell. If shell is moving in forward direction, what will happen, this whole gun will move in backward direction
to conserve the momentum, right?
How? Let us see again. So initially
this whole thing is in static, right? This shell is not moving and this gun is also not moving, but now because of some external effect, okay, at t is equal to 0,
right? Suppose we are having this spring and we will expand it,
we will just release the spring. What will happen?
The shell will move outside. Okay. So initially we had momentum as 0, right? Because mass into velocity, m1 into velocity 0 plus m2 into velocity 0. m1 is a mass of, suppose, gun, m2 is a mass of shell.
Okay. So that will be p1, pi, right, initially. Okay. After some time what happen,
when we release this spring, pf will become m1 into, suppose m1 is a mass of the shell, not shell, gun, and gun is having velocity v1 plus m2 into velocity v2. So this pf should be equal to pi from the conservation of momentum,
right?
And this whole thing will be equal to 0 here, right? So finally what comes, m1 v1 plus m2 v2 should be 0. Okay. So we found out this equation.
This equation came from conservation of momentum, right?
For this case, m1 is for gun. Suppose we will just put g here. So vg is the recoil velocity. Shell.
So from the numerical, from the problem we can find out
ms is 15 kilogram, vs is 500 meter per second, and mg is 1.5 into 10 to power 3 kilogram. Okay, and what they are asking, initial velocity of recoil. We have to find out Vg. So how to find out Vg? Vg will come minus ms vs divided by mg. So ms is 15 into 500 divided by 1500, right, and minus sign will come. So what will happen? If the shell is moving in forward direction, this gun will move in backward direction. That's why minus sign is coming. So it is gone 100 times. So we will get minus 5 meter per second. So the recoil velocity is minus 5. That is the answer of first question. Okay.
Now the second question is the uniform force necessary to stop the recoil of the gun is 200 millimeter. So what they are asking now, uniform force that is needed to stop the recoil of the gun. So what happens, we cannot allow this gun to recoil too much, right? Because what happens in real condition, you have to fire the shell continuously, right? So after firing one shell, you have to stop the gun as soon as possible. So when the gun is stopped, you will fire another shell, right? So continuously you are firing shell. Okay, so what you need, this gun that is moving, that is recoiling, should stop as early as possible. So for that you are applying external force now, right? So that's what they are asking. The uniform force, that is the external force necessary to stop the recoil of the gun. So suppose we know the acceleration of the gun, and if we multiply that acceleration of the gun with mass of the gun, and mass into A will be equal to the inertia of the gun. So we have to apply a reverse force that will be equal to the inertia of the gun, right? So that uniform force will be, okay, this question is over. Okay, so that uniform force will be equal to m into A with minus sign, right? M is the gun mass, A is the acceleration of the gun, right? Why I am putting a minus sign? Because if it is moving backward direction, we have to apply force in upward direction, right? That's why I am putting minus force, right? mg already known, ag already we don't know. How do we find out ag? So they are saying uniform force means this acceleration is also constant, right? Constant, right? How we are going to find out this? Like this here. So we will apply the third equation of Newton, v square is equal to u square plus 2as, right? So in the previous question what is given? The recoil of the gun is 200 millimeter. Okay. If the recoil of the gun is 200 millimeter, you can apply this equation, third equation of Newton. Okay. And when you will rearrange it, v square minus u square by 2 into s is equal to that recoil 200, right? Will come A, right? So v square, that is the final velocity, it should be 0 because we want to stop the gun as early as possible. Initial velocity is 5, that we found out. 2s, 2 is the simple 2, right? And this s is 0.2, recoil of the gun. When you apply this, you will find out this 62.5 meter per second square. Okay, so when you multiply this acceleration with mass, with the acceleration, you will find out this force. So this much of force you need to apply to stop the gun, right? So that you can again fire another bullet, right, as early as possible. Okay, so it is very good question. Right. So next question we will move. So next is the topic collision. So collision is also depend upon
impact. So what happens whenever two bodies are colliding, they will touch for very less amount of time, right? So what happens at the contact point, force will act for very less amount of time. So that's why it will act like impulse, right? So suppose you can see here one body m1 which is moving with v1 velocity, another body m2 which is moving with v2 velocity. So this v1 should be greater than v2, then only they will collide, right? So when they will collide, what happens? Deformation will happen during impact, okay? And after the deformation, they will again go back and they will exchange the energy, and then they will start moving with some other velocity, right? So that's how collision happens in 3 steps. First they will come together, then they will collide for some short period of time, okay, then they will go away, right, with different velocity. Okay,
So you can see this diagram. This diagram is the force between these two bodies, right, when they are contacting each other.
so they will start contact begins suppose here, right, then contact ends at this point. So what will happen? The force will increase, and up to some time, after some time it will become maximum, right, and then it will start decreasing again, right. So point of maximum compression. So what is happening? They are colliding each other.
So because of that some deformation happens, and that deformation is a kind of compression, right.
Okay, so this area
is deformation period.
in which bodies are getting deformed, right. Deformation time, right. This one,
This is time of recovery. So this area is a time of recovery, right.
so we know that
The area between force and time, F dt,
is equal to impulse, right, that is delta mv, right, m2 v2 minus m1 v1, right. So this area, if we can calculate in some practical condition, we can find out impulse directly, right.
so you can say the half of this area in which it is deforming,
It is, we can say,
impulse of recovery,
impulse of
deformation.
this area we can call impulse of deformation. Impulse of deformation, and this area, the later half, we can call impulse of recovery, right.
So why I am teaching you what is the meaning of teaching impulse of deformation and impulse of recovery? Because if you take a ratio of impulse of recovery to the impulse of deformation,
You will find a factor that is called small e, that is coefficient of what we call restitution, right.
so that's why I am teaching you this diagram, right, so that you will have physical, that is the physical what do you call, physical meaning of
Coefficient of restitution.
E, right.
So what is E? Impulse of recovery, coefficient of restitution. Impulse of deformation.
So this is impulse of deformation, and this area is impulse of recovery, and the ratio of these will become E, and E is called coefficient of restitution, right.
So that's what is the introduction of collision. So in collision, what are the equations we are going to use? So first one is conservation of momentum, right. So conservation of momentum will act for all cases whether there is a friction and whether there is a no friction, right? So if there is a no friction, in that case also we will apply conservation of momentum. If there is a friction, in that case also we are going to apply conservation of momentum. This one. So in conservation of momentum, what happens? m1 v1 plus m2 v2. Here you can see initial velocity m1 v1 and m2 v2, both are initial velocity. So initial momentum will be m2 v2. This is the initial momentum before the collision, will be equal to the final momentum, okay, m1 v1 dash plus m2 v2 dash. Okay, so this will follow whether there is a friction or not, it doesn't matter. Whether there is a loss of energy or not, it doesn't matter, right? So this will be the first equation, and it is going to follow this always, right? The second equation is conservation of energy, right? So what happens, suppose both these curves are equal in magnitude, okay. If both these curves are equal in magnitude, what will happen? Whatever deformation happened, then afterwards we will have full recovery, okay. If we will have full recovery, means there is no energy loss, right? If there is no energy loss, in that case we can apply energy conservation, right? It is the momentum conservation, we can apply energy conservation. So how do we find out energy conservation? So in first case, kinetic energy will be m1 v1 square by 2 plus m2 v2 square by 2 should be equal to the energy afterwards, after the collision, by 2 plus m2 v2 dash square by 2. So v1 dash v2 dash, right? So this equation 2 we can apply only in the case when we have no friction, when the collision is purely elastic. So what is the meaning of purely elastic? These two curves will be equal, right? Coefficient of restitution will be equal to 1, okay. In that case only we can say this energy equation will apply, otherwise it won't apply, okay. So that's the thing. So after solving these two equations, we can find out the final velocities v1 dash and v2 dash. So it is a little tough to solve these problems, that's why you will get very easy questions in the examination, okay, because it is very lengthy process to solve this big quadratic equation. So in exam you will find very easy questions, but conceptual, right? So it is the same conservation of momentum and conservation of kinetic energy, okay. When you solve these two equations, you can find out these two formulas. If you want, you can remember these two formulas, but I won't suggest, because they are asking very easy questions in collision. They are not asking any question based on the formula, but anyway formula is very easy. The final velocity you can easily find out directly with the help of these formulas. If you remember these two formulas, you can find out. And if you do more numericals, you don't even have to mug up the formula. You will remember it by itself, because as you can see, m1 minus m2 divided by m1 plus m2, m2 minus m1 divided by m1 plus m2. So both these things are somewhat same. In that way you can remember it. Same way this expression and this expression, they both are same. So if you just apply some analogy, you can remember this formula. But I didn't remember because I didn't need it, right? So if you have good memory power, you can remember these formulas. Okay, so let us see the value of E. So when the value of E is 1, the collision is purely elastic. When the value of E is equal to 0, it is purely plastic. Right. So what is the meaning of plastic? After deformation, when they will collide, after deformation they will stick. Now they won't go separate. Okay, they are both are going with same velocity v, right? So in that curve, what will happen? Suppose we have this curve between force and time. So deformation will happen, but this won't happen. Recovery won't happen, right? So because recovery is finished, that's why E will become 0, right? Same here, elastic is 1, that I already explained, and all other cases will be, for all other cases the value of E will be 0 to 1, right? So that's what it is. Another formula of E you can directly find out from the first equation itself. Now let me tell you how to find out that formula. E is equal to impulse of recovery divided by impulse of deformation, right? So what is the meaning of impulse of recovery? Force during recovery dt divided by force during deformation, okay, we can say Fd dt, and you will integrate it from this time to this time t2, t1 to t2, and that is equal to E, right? So we know the value of Fr dt, that is equal to, from the momentum principle, from the impulse principle we will know right. So when we solve this equation, what we get? So this one is for first mass, it is for second mass, right? So when we solve this, so not for first mass, sorry, I did some mistakes. So recovery, right? After it is the okay. Anyway, I may be a little confused here, but I just remember one formula. That's what I am going to tell you. That will come from here. So that will be equal to V2F minus V1F, right? So final velocity of both the balls, V1I minus V2I, right? So that will be the formula of E, and this came from here only. You have to do some integration or something, then you will get it, right? So after the solution you can find it, okay, and it is a little lengthy solution, right? And normally we don't even need this because it is not that much important for game, right? They will ask most of the question very basics, right? So this formula also you can remember. They can directly ask for a question from this formula. If you remember this formula, you can easily find out it, right? In between thing they are not going to ask. Okay, so now let us solve one numerical. So it is very basic, simple numerical. Two objects move on a horizontal frictionless surface along with the same line in same direction. Okay, so two objects are there, one or two. In same direction they are moving. V1 also same, V2 also same. The trailing object of mass 2.0 kilogram has a velocity of 15. So V1 is 15, and the leading object of mass 3.2 kilogram has the velocity of 11. So V2 is 11. The trailing object catches up with the leading object, and the two objects experience a completely inelastic collision. So what is the meaning of completely inelastic? Means plastic, right? So what will happen when they will strike each other? After that they will stick each other, right? So there will be a deformation, okay. So here there will be deformation and they will stick. So both the balls will become a single ball, you can say, right, of m1 plus m2, which is moving with some velocity v. So that's what it is. So what is the final velocity of each of the two objects? So how we can find out? First thing we will apply conservation of momentum. m1 plus m2, because velocity will become same, that will be v. So m1 v1 plus m2 v2 divided by m1 plus m2, and you can easily find out v.
final velocity. So that will be the answer. So you will put the values and you will get the answer. Right. So then let us move to next. Okay. So it is already solved. Okay. So m1 v1 is equal to m2 v2 like this. So final answer will be 13 meter per second. Right. So this question came in GATE, right, and it is very easy question. Just it is looking very tough, but it is actually very easy. A stone with mass of 0.1 kilogram is catapulted, right, just retracted as shown in figure. The total force Fx in Newton exerted by the rubber band as a function of distance x is given by Fx. So this rubber is applying some force on this stone, and that force is Fx, and that also they gave Fx is equal to 300 x square. Okay. If the stone is displaced by 0.1 meter, so if the distance from here to here is 0.1, okay, 0.1, the rubber band, the energy stored in the rubber is. So how to find out energy? Again we will apply same F dot ds integration, work done will be equal to energy, right. So what will happen? First this FDS will be stored as energy. When you release it, this energy will become work done, okay, and this ball will get some velocity, right, because of that work done. So what is the F? 300 x square, and what is dx? ds is nothing but dx, and both are having same direction. Displacement is having same direction as force, right. So E is equal to, and time is time or dx, wait, yeah, from 0 to 0.1 it is being stretched. Just to do integration, so let us do integration x cube by 3, okay, 0 to 0.1, so what you are going to get? 100 0.1, right. So that will be the answer. Energy stored in the rubber band will be 0.1 joule, right. That's the answer. Okay, then let us move to next question. It is very easy question, but what happens normally when we see this type of diagram, we get feared, we get scared, and we leave the question. But it was actually very easy question. So now let us move to next question. A block of mass m is released from point P on a rough inclined plane with inclination angle theta. Okay, so it is just released. Okay, just point P is just released on a rough inclined plane. So what is the meaning of rough? There will be friction mu. The coefficient of friction is mu. If mu is less than tan theta, so what is the meaning of tan theta? Okay, suppose if mu is equal to tan theta, this block will not fall down. If mu is less than tan theta, then only this fall down, right? Because now friction is lesser than the angle, right? So we know this angle as angle of repose, right, that we already studied in friction. Then the time taken by the block to reach another point Q on the inclined plane where PQ is equal to S is, right. So PQ is given as S, and what they are asking? Time to reach there. So how we are going to solve it? Let us see. So first, obviously, what we are going to do, we will make free body diagram of the mass here. Okay, so free body diagram means first thing we will have n normal, then we will have weight mg, and this mg will have a component in direction of normal, that is mg cos theta, and this mg will have a component in direction of the movement, that is mg sin theta. And because this block is moving in downward direction, friction will act in upward direction mu n. So that will be our FBD. Okay, and gravity is g here, angle is theta. So how we are going to find out time, that we need to see. Okay, so time, whenever we are having these type of problems, first thing what we will think about is
equation of motion. Okay, so we had three equation of motion. First one is v is equal to u plus at, and another one is s is equal to ut plus half at square. So this equation s is equal to ut plus half at square joins displacement and time. So we can find out time from this equation. So let us write the equation first. Okay, so initial velocity is obviously 0. S is given a by 2 t square, and t will be equal to 2s by a under root. Now what we have to find out is acceleration. So suppose this mass is having acceleration as a, right? So because of the acceleration it will have inertia as ma. Okay, and this inertia will be because of all the forces acting in this direction, right? So in this direction what are the forces acting? Mg sin theta and mu n. So mg sin theta will be positive minus mu into n, right? Mu n is friction force, negative direction, right? And what is the value of n? N is equal to mg cos theta. So what is happening? This box is not moving in this direction. It is not moving in the direction perpendicular to the surface. So because it is not moving in direction perpendicular to the surface, it is in equilibrium perpendicular to the surface. In that case what will happen? N should be equal to mg cos theta, right? So ma is equal to mg sin theta minus mu, n is equal to mg cos theta. M will be cut down, you will get a as g will be common, sin theta minus mu cos theta, right? So now you have to just put this a value here and you will get the answer. So t is equal to 2s divided by g sin theta minus mu cos theta and under root. So that will be the answer. So let us see in previous question where minus is coming. So it is in tan theta term. So we need to do one thing. We need to take cos theta common here. If we take cos theta common, tan theta will become tan theta minus mu. So where tan theta minus mu is coming? So in both these cases tan theta minus mu is coming, but we are taking cos theta common. So this will be the answer, right? So you have to just arrange it, right? So you have to just arrange this. So how you will arrange this? Take cos theta common. When you take cos theta common, what will happen? 2s divided by g cos theta sin theta by cos theta tan theta minus mu under root. So that will be the answer, right? So this answer is A, right? Okay, done. So this is also very easy question. It was not tough. So now let us see next numerical. A shell is fired from a cannon. Again it is the same type of question that we have already solved. At the instant the shell is just about to leave the barrel, its velocity related to the barrel is 3 meters per second, while the barrel is swinging upwards with the constant angular velocity of 2 radian per second. The magnitude of absolute velocity of shell is, it is very easy question. So the shell is having velocity of 3 meters per second, and this is moving with 2 radian per second. We are having 2 meter distance. So what will be velocity at this point? So velocity, angular velocity will be 2 radian per second, and because of that v is equal to omega we can apply. Vt, this Vt tangential velocity is equal to omega r. Omega is 2 into 2, that is 4, right? Okay, so this is Vt. Now we have to find out radial velocity of the shell. that is coming out VR. So how much is VR? That is given maybe in the question.
Shell is fired from a cannon. Instead, the shell is just about to leave the barrel. Its velocity relative to the barrel is 3 meter per second.
So this is 3, right? So they are asking absolute velocity of the shell is. So because both are perpendicular to each other, you have to just Vt square plus Gr square, 3 square 4 square, it will become 5.
Okay. This is the answer. Okay. So that is also very easy question. So an elevator lift consists of the elevator cage and a counterweight of mass m. The cage and the counterweight are connected by the chain that passes over pulley. The pulley is coupled with a motor. It is desired that the elevator should have a maximum stopping time of t second. So elevator is from a peak speed v. Okay.
So suppose peak speed is V, so within t second it should stop. V should become 0.
If the inertia of the pulley and the chain are neglected, the minimum power that motor must have. Okay, so we will solve this problem tomorrow. I think it is already over for today, and we have taken, I think, more time. So I will ask you to solve this question by yourself. Don't see the solution. That is the first step in the preparation of GATE. Never ever see the solution. Try to solve it yourself. Okay, until you solve it, you try to solve it. That should be the spirit. Okay, so best of luck for GATE, and